All right, we're going to get started. Like I said, we'll have opportunities. We'll take some pauses for questions along the way. And thank you for being here. So we will be covering the agenda today. We'll cover program objectives. Also, just a reminder to please mute. We'll cover updates and reminders for 2023. We'll review the application process and timeline. We'll go over SharePoint, which is what we use for submitting the application, the consolidated application, which is the application itself, maintaining compliance. We'll discuss some project closeout reminders, and we'll have time for question and answers. So the program objectives, we administer the HTCC program, which was established by statute to assist nonprofit entities creating affordable houses, creating affordable housing. The eligible uses of HTCC funds include affordable housing developments. We have a general class, which would be homeownership and or rental. We also have a workforce housing set aside and a supportive housing set aside. We also fund revolving loan funds. So this would be either in affordable housing, which is the general class, and workforce housing. To be eligible, you need to be a nonprofit corporation or CDFI. You need to be established for a minimum period of 3 years. We may consider an exception to this if the nonprofit is formed by a housing authority. You need to be in compliance with the requirements of the HTCC program for any prior awards and in compliance with any applicable CHFA board policy statements. You also must demonstrate administrative capability to undertake the proposed project in a timely fashion. Again, the eligible uses for the HTCC program includes affordable housing developments. So that's rehab or new construction of rental or homeownership housing. And as we discussed, you can capitalize a revolving loan fund to provide low-cost loans for new construction, rehabilitation, or acquisition of affordable housing. The units must benefit eligible, extremely low, very low, low, and moderate income households. The application evaluation, we will review full application received prior to the deadline. They'll be rated and ranked based on the following criteria: project feasibility and readiness to proceed, affordability, applicant capacity and goals accomplished, livability initiatives, and compliance. In addition, we do have our CHFA technical services staff review portion of the application. This includes the qualified development team, the contractor and architect, the development scope, flood zone if applicable, planning and zoning approval, the exploded trade payment breakdown and project cost summary. They'll look at the hard costs and the development budget, the historic significance, the environmental site assessments and hazardous materials survey, as well as the permits. All right, jumping right into program updates and reminders. And we're going to start off with the tech items. So I'm going to hand it off to Jennifer Landau. And when she's done, we'll have an opportunity, if you have questions at that time, to ask questions regarding tech items. Jennifer?
Great. Thank you, Colette. So good afternoon, everyone. So as Colette mentioned, we will have time for questions, but if you do want to email me, with a project specific question, if this doesn't fully answer your questions, my email is jennifer.landau@chfa.org. So certainly feel free to email me, reach out, and we can discuss your project if you do have questions after this presentation. So regarding the qualified development team, the architect and the GC, the architect is required to be licensed in the state of Connecticut, and the major contractor, if used, will also need to have a current license in the state of Connecticut. Next slide. The exceptions to this would be that if a licensed architect is not required by the city or town, given your specific scope, then just please provide that evidence. For example, we understand that if you're doing painting or, replacing appliances, those types of minor scopes of work would not require an architect. So we understand that. So just make that notification in your application materials. And the same follows for the major contractor's license. If your scope is minor, like painting or such, that wouldn't require a major contractor's license, again, just please let us know that in the CONAP. That would be helpful. The state of Connecticut, we do have the home improvement contractor license that would be acceptable in certain cases, where the scope is more, minor or moderate. So again, just make that notification in your application. Next slide. Another exception is per the Connecticut Building Code. If the square footage of the dwelling is less than 24,000, you might also not require the license of a licensed architect. And that work may be performed by a contractor in lieu of that. So again, just also keep that in mind with your application materials. Next slide.
Oops, sorry.
So as Colette mentioned, we're also going to be looking at historic preservation compliance. So you are required to reach out to SHPO just to notify them of the project, what you're proposing, and get some communication letter back from them regarding any potential for historic significance. So that is a part of the CONAP, and we will be reviewing for that. Next slide. For the phase 1 or phase 2, we're trying to be flexible. So the phase 1 is only required for projects where there's a new construction project included in the scope, or if you're anticipating an addition to an existing building, or if you're proposing any extensive new site utility work or other site work, which will require, major excavation or work of disturbing existing soil. If you're doing like a 1-for-1 replacement of either parking or sidewalks, that would not require a phase 1 because again, it's just simply a 1-for-1 replacement. But if you're adding new parking or you're adding new sidewalks or again, including any extensive site work, new construction or addition, then that phase 1 would be required. In addition, if that phase 1 in any way, shape, or form mentions that there's a concern or that some additional testing is recommended, we also would look to see that a phase 2 is done to further investigate that concern that was noted in the phase 1. Next slide. We will consider an exemption of this phase 1 requirement if you can evidence that or if you have an older phase 1, if you can evidence that the site does not contain any underground storage tanks or other potential issues at the site, that it has not been used for any illegal dumping or any other prior uses. So again, we will entertain that, but if you have any questions on this, certainly reach out and let us know your specific condition, and we can work with you on that response. Next slide. So a phase 1 would not be required if you're doing any in-place rehabilitation of an existing property, and you're not doing any new construction or any of the other activities we just discussed. So it would not be required for those rehab work with no site work or any work outside of that building footprint. The hazardous material survey, however, that is required for all existing buildings that are going to be renovated. So if you're doing a minor rehab, moderate, we would still require that hazardous material survey to be done. And that would include asbestos, lead-based paint, lead in soil, lead in water, PCBs, radon, and a visual mold survey would all be required for any existing building rehab work. Next slide. Any questions from anyone? So No questions here, then that's fine. Please reach out to me if you do have any questions. You can also reach out to Colette and we can, look at your question, but certainly feel free to reach out if you do have any questions after the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
And
Jennifer.
thank you.
All right, wanted to kind of go through some of the updates that we made to the CONAP for the 2023 round. So I just wanted to call out Exhibit 12.4. Sometimes we'll just tweak language, and I'm just pointing you in the direction to make sure that you read through the requirements and address the required narrative. So there was some slight changes in what we're requesting with the proposal narrative. With regards to Exhibit 12.8, the building roster, we slightly revised that. We added a column so that you could identify any previously assisted HTCC units if you're applying for additional funds. For Exhibit 12.9, administrative capacity, we're requesting that you also include org chart for the nonprofit. The HTCC justification form, this is Exhibit 12.12. This is for applications that have a commitment from CHFA or DOH. We're now asking and requiring that you attach a development budget showing the proposed use of the HTCC that you'll be applying for. There's also some, we'll go over in a few slides, there's some changes to who you'll need to work with to get that signed, but just an FYI that you'll now need to include the development budget. In addition, Exhibit 12.6, the environmental concerns and certification. We are now asking for a certified statement saying that the remediation requirements and recommendations from your LEP will be addressed as part of the proposed scope of work. So again, just a reminder, we've hit all the highlighted items and changes here, but just a reminder to go ahead and read each item in the CONAP carefully when you're making your responses. Some things that are new in the CONAP this year. So Exhibit 14.6 for workforce housing use restrictions. This is only for workforce housing set-aside applicants who are committing to a low income service period, which is a points item. So this won't apply to many of you. You'll need to provide a copy of the deed or land use restriction that you're going to be recording to preserve the units as workforce housing for the commitment, the duration of the commitment. We do have another new exhibit. This is for revolving loan funds, Exhibit 14.7. We're asking you to outline your revolving loan fund leverage funds. So this is a points item. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in a few slides. We're moving away from committed funds to available funds. So away from something that says you will have funds available to leverage to, we're asking you to show us what's available that you can use with the HTCC funds right away. The 2023 guideline updates. Under the threshold requirement category. Again, we talked about the HTCC justification form. This year, we are requiring that if you have a CHFA commitment of financing, that it must be signed by CHFA. So you need to work with your underwriter on that. If you have a DOH commitment with no CHFA commitment, then you would work with DOH to get that approval. LIHTC only deals. With DOH, you would go to DOH for that approval. It is not applicable for deals that only have prior HTCC commitments. And just a reminder that your project budget needs to be consistent across programs or financing. One of the other new items for this year is we'll be looking at the debt service coverage ratio. We have a minimum of 1.0 for at least 10 years. Under application requirements, we have clarified that if you're using ownership equity that's in the land or the buildings for points items, that be evidenced by an as-is appraisal or settlement statement that is no older than 12 months from the application due date. In addition, we talked about the new exhibit for 14.7. This is evidence of leveraged funds. So only funds that are available or accessible to the applicant will be considered leveraged funds. So for example, if you have a line of credit, money market account, or a loan grant agreement, and we're asking that you provide evidence that the funds are available to be loaned. And the recent balance is within 90 days of the application deadline. So we'd be looking for like a bank statement or a certified letter from an accountant. Additionally, for revolving loan funds, provide detailed description of your program and copies of your documents and templates to be utilized in the administration of the funds. That's in Exhibit 12.4. Nonprofit certifies that that uncommitted balances of previous HTCC revolving loan funds awarded do not exceed $750,000 at the date of application. That's Exhibit 12.5. And committed funds do not count towards the 750. So if you have a loan committee approval or you're closing and you have documentation of that, that wouldn't have to count towards the 750 limitation. And this isn't a new requirement. This was put in place last year. Some reminders for workforce housing set aside. In the event that the units cannot be sold or rented to qualified households, the funds will need to be returned. So there's no waivers or adjustments for the workforce housing set aside on this requirement. Again, the workforce housing committing to a low-income service period, you need to provide the proposed deed or use restriction. Some reminders for revolving loan compliance. The funds are expected to be exhausted prior to the 3-year time frame, and the fund must stay open for the minimum 3-year period. And revolving funds should be receipted back to the segregated account during that period. Within the guidelines, this was something that was outlined last year as well. Nothing has changed in this, but just kind of outlining the critical components of staying in compliance. So reminder to obtain your necessary project approvals, so zoning changes, municipal approvals, permits, maintain the HTCC funds in the segregated bank account, and keep accurate accounting records. Good faith efforts to market the housing program. Meet the required time frame, so you need to complete within 3 years from the date of approval, or for revolving loan funds, the fund inception. Reminder to submit timely, accurate, complete quarterly and closeout reports. Contact us when for approval when you're making any changes or modifications to your housing program. Participation in CHFA monitoring activities such as site visits. Avoid penalties and non-compliance designations. Sorry. And that's a very high level overview of maintaining compliance for HTCC. All right, so moving on to the rating and ranking changes. So for the loan fund workforce and revolving loan fund points, points are available for funds that will be leveraged. So again, kind of with the new exhibit, we're looking to understand what funds you'll be leveraging with the HTCC funds that you'll be requesting. And points will be awarded for a ratio of HTCC requests to leveraged funds. Prior HTCC funds are no longer considered in points. And one of the points was moved down to relevant experience.
Hey, Colette, I think we just have one hand up.
Okay. Go for it.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I've just a question on the committed. Say you have a essentially a pooled line of credit that you only draw on when there's a project, but it's not going to show up in a bank account. It's not going to. How would we document that, or does that count as committed?
If it's available.
Or available, yeah.
I mean, if you can, if it's available, I guess I would say that we would work with you. So we're just trying to understand that those funds are available for you to use with HTCCs. So
Okay,
if you have access to them, if it's a line of credit, we just need to understand how that line of credit works and what's available and what the limit on that is.
okay, thanks.
Sure. Anything else, Stephen? Before I jump back in?
That is it.
Okay. Okay, so for housing development, for the rating and ranking changes on the housing development side, so for item 1C, which is the percentage of project funded by HTCC proceeds, those points were reduced and now it's a maximum of 8 points on that item. And the balance of those points was moved to an SSHP category for 7 points. That's it for rating and ranking. Just a reminder, I know I've talked to many of you, at least the 2022 awardees. We do have new reporting forms. They are on our website. And if you are awarded 2023 funds, you'll be expected to use the new reporting forms. And I would expect that I would probably hold a little overview session as that reporting period becomes closer. But just a heads up that we have updated the reporting forms and they are available on our website if you'd like to take a look. The CHFA procedures also guide the program, and those have not changed since 2015, and those are on our website. Income limits and sales limits can be accessed as well. Here are some links within the slides. Applicable policies for HTCC include program eligibility requirements. These are CHFA board policies for program eligibility, as well as multifamily rental housing development costs. Okay, with regard to the application process and funding timeline. So applicants must use the 2023 version of the Khan app. That will be available through SharePoint application once you request that. It is also on our website. The applications must be submitted through the SharePoint site no later than June 1st of 2023 by 4 p.m. We will not be sending deficiency letters, and applications missing threshold items from the exhibit checklist will not be given further consideration. Applications scored against the program criteria. The top scoring housing programs will be recommended for reservations until the pool of 10 million is exhausted. We will make announcements towards the end of September, and the approved applicants have 60 days to provide executed business firm commitments. So the business firm makes the HTCC payment or contribution to the award recipient for its housing program, and the award recipient provides evidence in the form of a notarized statement and a copy of the check, as well as evidence that the funds are in the segregated account back to CHFA. Once we have those items, we will issue a tax credit voucher to the business firm for their contribution. Any uncommitted funds become available to the next highest ranked applicant who's able to secure a commitment. And those entities have another 30 days to get the funds to find a business firm to make a commitment. Overall, the calendar, here we are in April, and if you're working on an application that you're submitting in June, you'll want to make sure that you get authorization on the HTCC justification form if that applies to you. Make sure you request your SharePoint site well in advance, and we need to receive those by May 25th. As I said, applications are due in SharePoint on June 1st. We'll make announcements at the end of September, and we'll post those on our website. After that, in November, the contributing business firm applications are due to CHFA, and any uncommitted funds will be available to the next highest ranked applicant. December, applications for contributing business firms for the uncommitted funds will be due in December. All right, before I hand it off to Seema, does anybody have any additional questions on the material that I just covered? We'll have another opportunity at the end, but I just thought I'd pause. Okay, all right, well, we can have another opportunity at the end here. Seema? Seema, you're on mute. I don't know if you're trying to present. Can you guys hear me? Steven, are you there?
I can hear you, but I can't hear
Okay.
Seema.
All right, well, did we lose her? Let's see. Just check. She's still on the list?
Not seeing her, but hold on.
Okay.
Oh, I see her. I do see her now.
All right, Seema, going once, going twice. I'm gonna go ahead and skip towards the after Seema's part, and then maybe just bear with me, folks. And we can cover her material regardless, but we'll give her some time if she had to drop off for some reason. Just bear with me a second. Okay. Oh, I did not get where I wanted to be. Sorry, everyone. Okay. All right. We'll start with this section, and hopefully Seema will be back. If not, one of us can certainly cover her material. So in general, I wanted to kind of just give another overview of how you maintain compliance with HTCC if you were to get an award. So the program compliance begins after the credits are awarded, and that consists of quarterly report submissions and site visit inspections with CHFA staff and the sponsor. So quarterly reports are due 15 days after the end of each quarter. So January 15th, April 15th, July 15th, and October 15th of each year while the project is open. So with the quarterly reports, all the backup documentation must be uploaded to the HTCC Dropbox. And that link is on our website, and it's actually on top of the new forms that we have as well. So the quarterly reports must be accompanied by the disbursement and accounting summary of the housing program's segregated account, the applicable invoices and progress photos that are taken at the properties. The information must match the quarterlies. So permits, financing commitments weren't provided during the application. They should be provided once they are obtained. In accordance with our guidelines, any changes to the allocation of HTCC funds must be discussed with CHFA. The intended use is that it's not fungible. Again, any material deviation requires CHFA written consent. So if for some reason you need to make changes to your housing program, I really encourage that you reach out with an email. Don't even wait to the quarterly and just touch base with us so we can work with you on that if something comes up so that you can remain in compliance. Failure to submit quarterly reports or respond to findings will have a negative impact on your future applications. And applicants who fail to timely provide 4 quarterly reports may be in material non-compliance and may be ineligible to apply for funds. I would also refer you guys to the guidelines. I mean, generally, as a baseline, just make sure you submit your quarterly reports and that you contact us if there's any changes to your budget or your housing program. I would say that's the very general rule. It's not, it's not our intention to want to apply penalties to folks. We'd rather that you guys just send the materials in on time. But we do have, at any one time, we have 70 awards open. So it's important that you guys get us reports in on time. So I'd say that's the bottom line, but if you go to our guidelines, you can see how the penalties are applied. But again, if you just avoid that, it's best for all of us. Also, just advise to familiarize yourself with the CHFA policies, procedures, and guidelines. Those are kind of the guiding documents for the program. Same with the HTCC closeout. Upon completion, excuse me, we do have a new project closeout form, and we ask that you provide the certificates of occupancy, the certificate of completion, summary of expenditures, and we'll be looking at your compliance at that point as well. Failure to submit the final completion documents in 90 days could also be an action for noncompliance. Again, it's a 3-year time period for you to complete the project, so you'll need to stay within that time frame. All right, so here's some application tips as you guys are getting your applications ready. So cultivate potential relationships. The pool of investors is not deep. So I know many of you are very familiar with the program and have done it for multiple years. We do have a very good relationship with Eversource. I expect that they will remain committed. I would say as far as cultivating that relationship, just definitely be sure to include them in any invites for ribbon cuttings or groundbreakings and things like that. That goes a long way. So if you guys could keep up with that, I would really appreciate it. And if you don't have Jeff's contact, I can provide that to you. But they, again, have been a big supporter of this program, as you guys know. Don't wait to the last minute to submit your application. Give yourself time to address any questions or issues with your submission. Follow the exhibit checklist and read the application when it clearly understand the requirements. So again, the consolidated application, the exhibit checklist will tell you what the requirements of the what you have to fill out in the CONAP. So it's really important that you use that as a tool when you're completing your application. If you are an applicant checking yes that there's an identity of interest between development teams, you need to submit that certification explaining the relationship. Total expected resources for housing development, this is on the points worksheets, should not include the current HTCC request. There is a separate line for prior HTCC rounds. The CONAP is a very large Excel document, so you need to be really careful about making sure that you're not deleting any formulas. I think it's pretty locked down. I don't see that as a big concern, but just be aware, to use the workbook links as they are. Avoid having conflicting information. Definitely, that your exhibits match what you've entered in the CONAP. It definitely helps with staff review when things are consistent. Applicants submitting an application that is missing a threshold item, no matter how minor it may seem, may not move forward. So it's just real important that you use that exhibit checklist when you're submitting your materials. Read the guidelines, ensure you meet the applications requirements. This includes getting CHFA or DOH approval for that justification form and making sure that you're getting that to your CHFA or DOH contact so they have enough time to review that and get it back to you. Read the instructions carefully. Again, I've tried to highlight any changes that we've made, but it's absolutely helpful, and we can tell when you're looking at the application requirements and you're matching your narrative to the requirements. So please just make sure that you take a look at each area to see that you're addressing the application requirements. And if you're a previously funded applicant, it's important that you maintain compliance and eligibility to apply, submit those quarterly reports on time, using the proper forms, getting us the bank statements, the invoices, all of that. Contact us. I feel like I've said these things a few times, but you could tell that those are pretty critical things for us. The timely reports, the contacting us with any changes are pretty important. Keep track of your closeout date and make sure that you submit the required materials on time. All right. Did we get Seema back by any chance?
Yep, I'm
All
here.
right. Okay.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, but you're gonna have to give me a minute to get back to your slide.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. While Colette is just getting the slide back on. Sorry about it. My computer's just started updating and kicked me out of Teams.
All right, Seema.
Okay, perfect. So what is SharePoint? Jaffa uses SharePoint. It's a Microsoft-based product for receiving applications. So each applicant has to ask us for a site. We create one, and that's where you start submitting the information. Next slide. All right, how to get access to SharePoint. So the applicant should send an email to applicationrequest@jaffa.org. So this is a dedicated mailbox for getting sites created, and give us the information, the funding round, applicant name, company name, primary contact, name, phone number, and email. And if you are submitting multiple requests, each request should be a separate email. All requests are set up to set up SharePoints must be submitted by 4 p.m. on Thursday, May 25th. This will allow us time to create individual sites for you all. Please use the email given here, applicationrequest@jaffa.org. If you have any problems, feel free to reach out to me. My email is at the end of the presentation. Now, in order to set up a site, we need a Microsoft account. So make sure you have a Microsoft account. Next one. So the consolidated application workbook. This all application material related to HTCC application is all provided on the SharePoint. Consolidated application is the workbook that Jaffa uses. So use that. Along with that, you'll find all exhibits and reference documents, all part of that SharePoint site. The consolidated application, it can be edited, saved directly on, by the team members, and multiple folks can work on it. Please use the version that is on the SharePoint. Sometimes we hear people using, older versions. Please make sure you use the 2023.1 version. As Colette was mentioning, we did make some updates. So if you don't use the current version, you may not have all of that. And these are also provided, the ConApp and all this material is also provided on Jaffa website. You can find it there also. And it can be downloaded onto your computer, and when you can edit it, tweak it, and you can upload it back when you are complete. But make sure you submit it prior to submission deadline. Next one. So sharing the site, SharePoint allows site sharing, which means once the site is created and one team member is able to log in, they can share it with anyone that they choose to. So this allows multiple users to assign and complete tasks, update one consolidated application workbook, and upload files as necessary. Next one. Submitting the application. Applications for HTCC are due June 1, 2023, 4 p.m. So make sure you know, sometimes there is a lot of rush and it may be busy, so don't wait till the last minute. Try to do it as soon as you are complete. SharePoint will be locked for further editing after 4 p.m. and any items that are not completely uploaded by then will be considered deficient. And, you know, as you are moving through your working on your documents, you know, upload them as they're completed. So you don't have to, you know, face any runtime errors. If you can view the uploaded file from the SharePoint site, it has been successfully uploaded and will be considered part of your application. Sometimes we do get, you know, applicants reaching out. Can you see our documents? But as long as you can see them submitted, we will be able to see them too. Next one. Jaffa will not review any uploads to SharePoint until after the application submission date or time. Nothing submitted via email will be considered as part of the application unless requested specifically by CHFA. And here is the most important part. To submit your application and lock your website, mark all the items in the task list section as complete. That will, you know, trigger a notification to us and tell us that everything is ready to go and we can do our review. Next one. All right, so this is SharePoint and we have something called a reference library. This section includes a downloadable version of the consolidated application, as well as several templates and forms that are to be completed and submitted with each application. And I would suggest that you use this downloadable version of the consolidated application for reasons that I'll mention in the end. But here are all the documents that you would need for your HTCC application. Next one. Yeah. So now the consolidated application. So this is a really large macro heavy Excel workbook, and it is designed to use for numerous funding rounds, not just HTCC, but numerous others that are offered by DOH and CHFA. It includes templates for required forms and instructions, and it shows threshold requirements for each type of application. So the first tab on the consolidated application workbook is the exhibit checklist. It has links, you know, throughout for ease of navigation and reference. And it includes buttons on the checklist to show only necessary items for your round. So for HTCC round, you will be able to delineate what is threshold, what are the required items. Next one. So using the consolidated application. And this is really important because we use the same application for multiple funding rounds. So start on the exhibit checklist, and then you hit the button called core items. And then to your right, you'll find a lot of, you know, funding rounds. Pick HTCC because that's the application that you're looking to submit for. This will hide any items not needed for that round, for HTCC round in your case. And don't worry if a mistake is made or additional exhibits are needed, you can always click show all and repeat the process. And remember, information will not be lost, just hidden until show all button is selected. Fill out blank fields, check boxes, drop downs on the application worksheet to submit to fulfill the task. Next one. So these are just some snippets from the consolidated application. And as I was mentioning, it's a macro heavy Excel documents. It is locked down so that, there are no editing of formulas and stuff. And it has a variety of fields. There are some drop downs, there are data tables, there are checkboxes. Use them, as the section that you are trying to fill out. Next one. Complete the other required worksheets to be included with the submission. Print and sign any applicable signature documents. And then, these signature documents should be scanned and uploaded to the SharePoint. Once again, consolidated application version 2023.1 is the current one, and that's the version that should be used for the HTCC submission. If something needs to be modified, a request to unlock specific sections can be made, but you must include an explanation, and we'll go over it and we'll try to address your request. Next one.
We're all set.
Okay, so now I'll tell you a FAQ that I've been receiving. And this has more to do with how Microsoft, rolled out recent guidance. They are, if you try to open the Con app over internet, you will likely see a security warning saying that your macros are disabled. That is something that Microsoft has done. So, they were seeing there were a lot of things happening over the internet. So a workaround for that is download the file onto your computer and then try to access it. Everything should work well. Google Chrome works well with our Con app. But if you are facing any issues, feel free to reach out. We'll quickly help resolve it. Any questions?
Lou.
Hi, Seema. You had mentioned clicking the application, checking all the items, and then clicking send. I'm assuming we still have the option of not clicking send, just allowing the time to pass to 4 o'clock and the application is automatically submitted. Is that still the case?
Yeah, it is still the case. But if you think you are all done, and if you're all complete, just mark all the items complete. That will automatically lock it and, submit it sooner. Don't wait till 4 o'clock to hit the submit button.
We always stress till 3:59 and 59 seconds.
No, we do get sometimes that, people were, not able to upload something, or, the traffic was high on SharePoint.
Well, even if we're done, we tend to wait till later, just in case something pops out of nowhere that we need to submit. So I just wanted to make sure that was still an option. Thank you.
And then Francis, I see your, oh, okay, yep. Deb's on it. So just to reiterate Francis's question, so she's asking if she can use the LITech app. So no, we just updated 2023.1 is the latest Con app, and that was specifically for HTCC. So it has requirements in there that are applicable to our review. So you'll need to use that. You're welcome. The one other thing I would just say, and this is just a general comment, I've heard from a few people recently who are saying, oh, I'm not going to apply because I'm not going to get these points and this and that. I would say that in 2021, we were oversubscribed for the program. In 2022, we were not. We were able to fund everyone who is eligible. So just keep that in mind, because I've heard that from like 4 or 5 different people, and we want to get the money out there too. So I hope that folks don't think because they're not qualified for certain points that they're just not going to try. So I just wanted to mention that. Lou?
Colette, one more question. In terms of the nonprofit exemption for the 3-year holding period or 3 years of existence, if it's a housing authority created nonprofit, is that something we would discuss with you offline? Or is it, if a nonprofit is created by a housing authority, is it essentially eligible regardless of the 3-year?
Yeah, I mean, you're always welcome to touch base with us just so that we're on the same page. But I mean, I would think that the organizing documents, we'd be able to tell that it was formed by the nonprofit. But if that's not clear, you know, you can reach out. We can take a look at it or discuss it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll hang on for another minute or two, but you know, you guys are more than welcome to reach out to me if you're not sure whether it's a question for Seema or Jennifer or myself. Just send it along and we'll get it to the right person. We're glad to see all of you back again this year interested in applying for the program. We love learning about all the things that you're doing out there for housing throughout Connecticut. So we want to say thank you to you guys as well. But if there's any other questions? All right, well, you know how to get a hold of us. Thank you for being here today. And best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Stop recording. Let's record. Stop recording.